Yo, I'm Candy and I be knitting, and this week I be showing you what I've been working on recently. I'm gonna work from most knitting related to least knitting related. I wanted to have a quick conversation about sock knitting. I've been working on the DK Scrappy socks by Stephen West, and I've been doing it with fingering weight held double. This is Knit Picks Felici in the colorway Sebastian held double, and then Snow Cone in from Line Brand Saki's held double for the cuffs, heel, and toe. And I held the Felici double. I finished one sock and basically just lined up each ball so the stripes were matching up, and so far so good. There were so few little blips where the colors changed a little bit quicker, but when you lay the balls side by side, the length is exactly correct. But I believe when you start knitting and you're wrapping the yarn around the needle and one strand is going this way, one strand is maybe closer to the needle, one strand is further away, it gets just a little bit off track, but the striping worked out very well. And I'm sometimes holding the fingering weight double can make a really stiff fabric, but the fact that the Knit Picks Felici is a bit softer worked really well for this. So I finished one sock and I've started the second sock. And the thing I wanted to talk about with this is just kind of the evolution of my knitting and how I can become a creature of habit and be like, okay, I do it this way, and then that way works. And it's like, well, what happens when that way doesn't work anymore? And so I've always knit my socks on DPNs. And when I first started, one of the big concerns with DPNs, or the criticisms of DPNs, is you can end up with what they call laddering, where you have the needles going from one needle to the next. You'll have an extra little bit of space that will cause almost like it looks like a run in stockings, like that stitch will be that much bigger than the other stitches. And when I first started knitting, I would like tighten up so I wouldn't have laddering, and sometimes tightening can make the laddering worse. And somewhere down the line someone said, hey, just relax your tension and eventually it'll all even out and the laddering will be not noticeable. And so once I started relaxing and knitting more and practicing, the laddering went away. Fast forward a couple of years, all of a sudden I'm noticing laddering again. And not just where the needles meet, mostly where my decreases were, specifically where I would SSK or slip knit to decrease on a certain side of the sock. So one half of the sock would have like laddering in the toe and then laddering in the heel where I would SSK. And I did I would tighten the stitch, or some people say tighten the next stitch after you SSK. Some people would say, usually when you SSK, you slip the stitches knitwise. And some people would say, oh, slip one knitwise, one purlwise. And I played around with different techniques. I don't know how accurate I was just going on the internet and, shocking, but not everything on the internet is accurate. And so I was, looking at all these different techniques. Finally, someone who watched me heard me complain about this and comment on one of my videos. They said, hey, when I do socks, I just knit two together all the way around. And you really can't tell the difference because the idea is that they're left leaning and right leaning decreases, but it's a sock on your foot, so no one's gonna really see that the decrease is going a different way. And I was just like, oh, that's amazing, that's great. And so then I started knitting two together for all of my decreases, and it also helps because I don't have to think like, oh, am I SSKing here? Am I knit two together? It just all knit together. That was working very well for me. But then all of a sudden, the stitches were loose again. I'm like, what is going on? And the worst part of this is these were socks for my husband, and I've mentioned that he wears his socks a lot, and the toe and the heel is the last place where you want weakness. And over time, the sock starts to, you know, stretch out and wear to the foot, and the sock kind of gets twisted on his foot, and that's where it would rub, and that's where I would have to darn the sock. And so I was like, okay, the knit two together isn't working anymore. What do I do? And so I went back to SSKing, and now the SSK looks neat again and is fine. So I don't know what the lesson is here. I guess people change over time, and, you know, so if I guess the message, the takeaway is, if you hear a bit of advice or you see a tip or something and you're like, oh, that has never worked for me, you know, it might actually work, you know, depending on how many years have passed, if your body's changed, if your knitting technique has changed. You never know. So just be willing to try different things and see what works, because I was just like, what the heck is going on? You know, it's like the never ending, you know, story with this thing. And so for now, my SSKs look great again. I don't know. Until they don't anymore, and then I'll go back to knitting two together, or maybe someone will have invented another decrease that I can use. But that's what I want to talk about in reference to my sock. Speaking of Stephen West, and speaking of knitting projects, I guess that's what we're here to talk about. I don't know why I said it like that. The other thing, I guess I was saying that this is going to be, I have Stephen West on the brain because I just finished that shawl, and then I just realized, oh wow, I have 2 more of his projects that I'm still working on. So this is where I'm at with my amazing Technicolor Dreamsweater. And I believe the last time y'all saw this, I was still in the sleeve. Since then, I finished the sleeve. So you cast on one sleeve, you knit sideways, and then you cast on, this is the right front. And so you cast on a bunch of stitches here, and then you keep knitting sideways, and you knit until you're halfway done with your front, and then this will go on hold, and the next step will be to cast on the left side, and then those 2 pieces will get joined. This is interesting because last week I talked about the knit and slide. I apologize if I kept calling it the knit and slip, because obviously slipping is a thing in knitting, and so I constantly get those 2 mixed up. But please know that when I say the knit and slip, I mean the knit and slide. That is the name of the pattern. I was talking about how tedious I found that pattern to be, but then I also recognized that there's something for everyone. So this is all over moss stitch, so that's alternating knits and purls. And I was actually nervous to cast this on because I'm like, I don't know if I have that in me. And actually it's been quite fun. Like, this is like the right kind of tedium. I don't know what's the difference between the knit and slide and doing just knitting back and forth. Because I know some people hate ribbing because they hate purling. I don't have that aversion to purling. And so this, I don't know, this one just feels right. And I have been this has been pretty much my focus project. And not only has it been like, oh wow, I have the challenge of the all over moss stitch, but also I'm very carefully planning and weighing my yarn. And you'll see I have the ends still hanging out at the bottom, because this would be a nice sweater to weave your ends in as you go, because you're gonna have a lot of ends. But I also have been frogging this a lot, because I'm trying to do a fade with a bunch of different yarns, and I'm just making sure I'm getting the right feel. And so I'm constantly looking at it, like trying not to look too closely, but also, you know, trying to make sure that the finished product is what I want. And so it's like all over moss stitch, but also very careful planning. Also, I'm weighing all this stuff, and hopefully my Ravelry notes will be bang on as far as weighing all this, because I'm going for a very particular look. This yarn, this pattern, he recommends just doing scraps and just doing whatever, but I am looking for a cohesive look. And so as you can see, I start with the light colors here, went into the darker colors, now I'm going back to light. And then when I cast on the other sleeve, it'll meet in the middle and I'll have like the lightness going down. And then I'm also trying to reserve enough of the yarn so the back is uniform as well. And so it's all careful planning. This is the most thoughtful part, because presumably this is one sleeve and one front. Once I do the math for this and weigh all of my yarn, it should be very easy to replicate for the rest of the sweater. So after I finished the sleeve, I weighed my yarn, and so I know how much I need to reserve for the other sleeve. And then from there, knit the front. And then once I get to the back, it's going to be less of a thing, but also the back is knit in one piece, so I'll need to save half, I'll knit one half of the back, and I'll have to make sure that I reserve half so the back is nice and uniform. I don't end up with like one weird stripe of a brighter color on the edge. We shall see. Very interesting. Very, like, this doesn't feel like work though. This feels like the appropriate amount of thought and fun to go into a knit. And then there is some shaping on the bottom too, and so I need to think about what I want to do on the bottom. He has a brioche border on the bottom, and I might just do ribbing because I don't know if the brioche is worth it to do, especially if his pattern is like all about like high contrast and holding all kinds of different yarns together. Because I'm doing such a uniform color thing, I don't know if brioche to me is worth it when it's 2-color brioche. That makes sense to me. 1-color brioche or brioche with a bunch of homogeneous colors, you're not even gonna see the effect and the stitches of the brioche, so I feel like I might as well do ribbing. Also, brioche can be very stretchy, and I don't know if I want that much stretch in the waistband, but I'll wait till I finish the whole thing and see the drape of it. I might even block it first and then figure out what I'm gonna do. Also, he has an option in the border. He says just to leave your ends hanging and have like tassels kind of at the bottom. I don't think I want tassels, but I might just see how far it comes. I think it's gonna be very cropped though. I think it's gonna be more cropped than I want. And so I think I'm definitely gonna wanna add something. I just don't know what yet. So that's that. And this is all Urban Girls yarn in various colors that I've collected. And so this is a great like kind of like stash buster. I have like 4 or 5 different colors. The other thing I'm thinking about, because I'm almost done, so what happens once I get to the length it's supposed to be here, then you start doing shaping for like a neckline. And because this is like so homogeneous, and also, by the way, red is one of my favorite colors. You're seeing a lot of reds and pinks in this, and I love the look of the color. I don't know if it's not my favorite color to wear. I don't know if it pops as well as other colors on me. And so I am considering adding just a little pop of color once I get to the neck shape and having like a formal stripe go down the front. And this is some Well-Dressed Sheep from Great Adirondack Yarn Co. And this is a superwash silk nylon blend. This is a skein of yarn one of my kids bought me for like a Mother's Day or birthday gift or something. And so I think this pattern would lend itself nicely to featuring a special yarn, especially if you only have like a limited amount of it. But I don't know. Also, I was thinking about maybe doing this for the ribbing. I don't know. Something to think about. All right, so we're working from most yarn related to, or most knitting related to least knitting related. So those are my 2 knitting projects. We'll go to spinning next. Or I guess we're working from, actually, oh, I know what order. We're gonna go from most finished to the rawest essence. So I just wanted to quickly show y'all this. I went to my local creative reuse store, Scrap RVA, the other day and picked up this red square here is a what do you call those things? A potholder loom. And something that I think like, you would buy for a child, and you use like those cotton loops to weave pot holders. And it was $1, and it's metal too. I like that it's metal because they always have plastic looms, but I don't always see the metal looms. And my thought with this was that I want to try to weave some washcloths and play around with learning some woven weaving techniques and motifs and stuff like that. This is just me playing around and trying to get a feel for it because this is meant for loops. It's not necessarily meant for yarn, and so I'm just kind of thinking about what that looks like to weave with the yarn on here. The way I warped this, I looked at a zoom loom technique, and so I did all the pegs going this way, and I turned it, did the pegs going this way, turned it, did the pegs going this way. I'm not a weaving expert, so just Google zoom loom if you're trying to figure out what I'm talking about. And so this is just one technique of how to warp something like this, and I just kind of wanted to see how it was going to look. Obviously, well, I don't know if obviously, but I would probably like a denser washcloth. This is a lot of holes you're seeing here, but it's just me trying to figure out how to use this device, and I'm not a proficient weaver. And so I just pulled out some random cotton yarn. I did find that I needed to use a contrast color, and so I did use different colors for the warp and the weft because I was really going cross-eyed looking at this. And so I'm gonna try it like this, but then I'm gonna link a video in the description box of a woman I saw that was using this to weave with yarn, and I'm gonna just, I haven't told, I watched the video, but I really wasn't absorbing it because I was like, when I'm trying to learn something new, I kind of have to dive in on my own and then work backward. And so I need to go rewatch the video to figure out what she was talking about, but she just warped it this way. And the other thing she did that I'm going to do the next time around is she held the yarn double, because these are meant for like thick cotton loops. And so for a washcloth, I would want it to be a little denser and for it to be a little thicker. So I'm going to go back and watch her tutorial and try that technique. And it's just something else to do that's like low, you know, sometimes my knitting, I can take it a little too seriously. And so this is just something low stakes I can play around with. And it was like, you know, like I said, $1. And then I obviously have tons of cotton yarn to play with. This would be, my kids loved like little blankets for baby dolls and Barbies and stuff. And so they might want to play with this, or I was thinking I might use it for a, once I take it off the loom, I might do like a nice little border and use this as a mat to put my electric eel wheel nano on when I spin, because sometimes it can like slide across the table. And so I think it would be nice to have something that it can sit on. But if I can figure out how to do washcloths on this, I think it'll be a nice little craft to do. That would be fun for me. And so there's that. So those are my projects involving finished yarn. I just wanted to quickly show y'all these 3 bobbins were on my drops. I spun these up on my drop spindle. This is the hip strings I was spinning. I made rolags, and I used a braid of hip strings, and I made rolags on some hand carders with some gray Navajo churro. So I kind of like muted the colors a little bit. And so what you're seeing here, there was like deep navy blues, more of like a teal, and then like a maroon reddish color, and then just like hints of yellow throughout the whole braid. And so I broke it up based on the colors and ended up with 3 kind of distinct colorways. And I thought I was going to keep it that way because I was like, oh, it'll be more versatile because I'll have, oh, I can use navy blue over here, I can use the red over here. But when I tried to ply, I did like some sampling, and I was like, you know what? I think I will do a 3-ply with these 3. And so this is what I have left on the bobbins. I've already spun up one, or I've already plied 1 bobbin. And this is that. And so from a distance, it's like super muted. You're getting a lot of like the gray and dustiness of it. But up close, there's just like little pops of all the colors and some really great barber poling and not my, it's interesting, you know, the things that I knit versus the things that I spin versus the things that I wear. And there's something about like when I'm plying or when I'm spinning, when I'm plying, when I'm working with raw wool and turning it into yarn, it's almost like my nickname for this is the best kept secret, because I'm seeing like these little micro areas of where color is coming together. And it's like, oh, there's the little bit of teal, there's that little bit of yellow. And I don't know if anyone can fully appreciate that once it's like knit up into a sweater. And so like, it's like this very just subtle thing that's happening, and I'm like super locked in. As opposed to when I'm knitting, you guys see that? Stuff like this where I'm like really looking for pops of color, and I'm like playing with color in a really aggressive way. When I'm spinning, I'm always, I have a little bit more appreciation for the wool and a little bit more appreciation for just like the very little bits and bobs of it. And so I say all that to say this, I don't know what I'm going to do with this because this is not necessarily my colors. I'm trying to bring Mr. Rulude, my husband, into the world of color work. He's still very much like, oh, just all over the same color. I think this would actually be his colors. If I were to do like some sort of like color work sweater, I could see this being one of the contrast colors in there. Just very subtle with just like, ooh, there's that. And so that was a lot of fun. And last but certainly not least, I wanted to show y'all a little dye experiment I did. I was on YouTube and I saw a new YouTuber, a new to me YouTuber, let me say that. Never seen this person before, which is interesting in and of itself because I don't always, YouTube is a weird place. I'm sure y'all know that because y'all are on YouTube literally right this second. So I don't always I barely get to see the people I'm actually subscribed to. So it was interesting that I saw a totally different person. And it was like a series of fortunate events because I was like, oh, it's a new YouTuber, but you know, I'm already not even caught up on all the YouTubers I normally watch. So I was like, I don't know if I want to delve into this. The second thing that caught my eye was that she was talking about how to do a dye garden, and I garden and I dye yarn and I knit. And I was just like, well, I kind of know a lot about like plant-based dyeing from my gardening. You know, it's probably going to be about marigolds and about, you know, avocados, or about, some people do like flower pressing. And so I was just like, I don't, you know, it's going to be the same old thing I always see. Long story short, I ended up watching the video. The person is, the knitter is, or the creator is named Becca, Ply and Dye with Becca, and I'll have a link to the video. And so I started watching the video. I was like, yeah, marigolds, you know, yeah, indigo. And then she mentioned carrots. I have literally never heard of anyone dyeing with carrots before. And I even Googled it and didn't get a lot of the Google. I have a book about natural dyeing, did not see carrots mentioned in this. And I was just like, oh, I'm glad everything in my mind was telling me, I don't, yeah, do I really want to watch this video right now? And lo and behold, it was something I had never heard of before. And so my next step was, I am a gardener. I do grow carrots. And what I do with my carrots is, because something about gardening has really taught me a lot about food waste. You know, the amount of effort I put into my garden, nothing goes to waste. So I grow my carrots, and what I do is you have like the grassy green part that comes off the top of the carrots, and I wash the carrots, shave them, and usually I like to do, I might roast them. I like to do fridge pickles with my carrots. But my tops that I cut off and the greens that I cut off, I don't throw those away. I put them in a freezer bag with the intention to make vegetable stock out of them. And so I had a whole bag of carrot waste basically in my freezer. And I was just like, I could make vegetable stock, or I could try this dyeing experiment. I have literally nothing to lose because it's literally waste from my garden. And you know, I have other ways of getting vegetable stock. So I gave it a try. This is some pure white, undyed Copeworth fleece that I've had. And I dyed it with some carrots. And I got this color. Pretty subtle difference. This is a little bit more warm. I believe the color you're going for is a yellow when it comes to carrots. And what I did was I just go ounce for ounce. So I had 500 ounces of carrot tops, and so I dyed 500 ounces of wool. And also keep in mind that it was carrot tops, and I don't know if using the actual carrot would make a difference in the color. I imagine you might get a deeper color with actual carrot, and also usually freezing dye stuff lessens the color, and so I think it might be brighter with fresher carrots. But this is the side by side. And it's just, I learned something new, first of all. Second of all, this bright white Copeworth that I have so much of, it's nice to get like a warmer tone from it. I think it is going to make it a lot more versatile, because sometimes like I don't necessarily like to work with like just bright white yarn. It's nice to have some versatility and some different colors. And so I'm pretty pleased with that. And I might try this again with, maybe I'll go, you know, maybe not use like my fresh garden carrots, but maybe I'll go to the grocery store and just get whatever old, you know, bulk carrots they have and try to do it with fresh, raw, the actual root of the carrot plant, and see if I get different color. I also, what did I used, what is that stuff called? I have mordant, and it's the stuff that helps the dye stuff stick, but I cannot remember what I used, what it's called. It's comes in a little thing from the grocery store. It's the stuff that they put in snickerdoodles, but I cannot think of the word for it right now. I'm sure it'll come to me as soon as I turn the camera off. So that's that. What I think I'm going to do with this is, probably 2 years ago, I grew cotton, and I still have, I grew cotton, and I wasn't even like that proficient of a spinner just yet. And so I think it would be interesting to revisit now that I have a little bit more proficiency at spinning. And so I think it would be cool to blend this with some of that cotton and have like a proper garden yarn. I think that would be a lot of fun. So that's all I wanted to show y'all. If you liked this video, please like this video. If you didn't like this video, be ironic and like it anyway. Share this video with a friend or an enemy. Comment below, what have you been up to lately? Spring's in the air everywhere we look around, especially, I mean, if you live in my hemisphere. It's shearing season, so you know, are you getting any good fleeces? Are you spinning? Are you dyeing? Are you playing around with different crafts? What's like, I'm assuming everyone that watches this is a knitter or a crocheter or both, but what are like some other crafts you do? Are you a weaver? Do you do needle felting? Do you garden? How is your garden doing? Are you getting it cleaned up? Are you starting plants? Let me know. You can also let me know on Instagram. I'm candibknittin on Instagram. I'm candibknittin@gmail.com. If you want to just email me personally. But until the next time, peace.